Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today I am doing my very first full digital illustration, and it was a little bit of a struggle. But I had already decided that I was going to be doing a collaboration with the channel Sweet Pigment. I will have their channel link up above, and when their video is done, I'll have it in the description. And she's mostly a digital with a little bit of traditional art on her channel, but definitely a lot more digital than mine. And I have been wanting to get better with digital, so I figure why not just jump in and do a collaboration. So I have done a scribble collaboration or scribble drawing collaboration before, and that was traditional, and I really like my collaborations to be pretty different from each other and unique to the collaborator that I'm working with. And so since Sweet Pigment does use a lot of digital for her drawings, I decided that I would give it a try. So at the very beginning you saw a sketch, or I guess a few scribbly lines, and here and there I'll show you those scribbles, but at this point I've already started to sort of build an environment around these lines, and it was actually pretty fun to come up with what these lines were going to be in the illustration. Since they were very organic looking, I figured what better way to create an illustration around them than to draw more succulents, because if you've been around my channel any length of time, you know that's where I go to. So in this illustration I am using a tablet monitor that is the XP Pen 22-inch. I'll have a link for it down below, but I have used tablets here and there that didn't have a screen on them, and that has been difficult for me. So I finally purchased this that's similar to a Cintiq, but a lot more affordable, and I decided that I would start practicing more. And I think one of the main things with digital art for me is I'm not a huge fan of sketching within the program. I think in the future I would sketch traditionally and probably scan something in and then start off with line work and have the concept pretty much already done before I get to the point where I'm using the computer. But I figured if the scribble was already digital, I might as well just go ahead and make my sketch and drawing completely in the program. And I am using Clip Studio Paint. This is a pretty affordable program. It goes on sale a lot, and I had heard a lot of amazing things from other artists about using this program, and honestly I've downloaded probably way too many free and cheap digital painting programs, and I think what I need to do is just commit to a program and stick with it. I think what I tend to do is kind of jump all over the place, and then I don't fully learn the ins and outs of a particular program, and so I feel a little bit stuck or frustrated since I kind of get stuck on that step and getting used to the tools and things like that, rather than just practicing, since it's a new medium. And that's probably the most frustrating thing, is I've been making art for pretty much all my life, but digital art is a whole new medium for me, and so I have to kind of take it slow and practice more than I would like. And so that's what this project was. As you can see, I created this little illustration of a bunch of succulents with a little baby hedgehog and presumably their mother, I guess, could be dad, kind of peering around one of the other succulents as the baby is sleeping. And I thought this was just kind of a cute, whimsical, simple enough design for learning a new medium like digital. And I think it fit with the scribble lines pretty well. She gave me 3 different lines to work with, so it was a little bit of a challenge, but I think it worked pretty well. I went into this thinking that I didn't really want to spend hours and hours and hours on it, just because I knew that I would be pretty frustrated. So I really wanted to have a deadline so that I would get something done and complete it. So I decided that I would get to a certain point and just stop, because with traditional means, I feel like it's a lot easier for you to find a stopping point because there's a lot of points of no return, I feel like. And with digital, you could rework a piece over and over and over, and that's kind of terrifying and daunting. So I wanted to commit to this collaboration, have it come out this week, and just whatever time I had, I would get it done. And so that's what I did. I will say one of the cool things about doing the screen record for this video was to really see how long it actually took me to work on the piece. Pulling it into iMovie as I was editing, I was able to actually look at how much time I spent on this. And it actually ended up being a lot less than I was expecting. I was trying to gauge maybe about 6 to 8 hours on a piece like this, just because it is so new and I'm learning it. But it ended up being about, or even just slightly less than 4 hours to complete this piece. And I'm actually pretty impressed, to be honest, because I think I did a fairly good job. I definitely wouldn't put this right next to some of my watercolor illustrations, but I don't completely hate it. So I think that's a pretty good thing. And I'm happy that it didn't end up taking much longer, because I think a lot of it for me is I was just sort of getting tired staring at it. And part of that's probably just not being as used to staring at a screen for quite as long as I did for this piece. I think I ended up doing this in sort of an hour here, an hour there sections, so that ended up being pretty good. I got to kind of get up and move around, and I did end up taking a couple days break in between working on this, so it wasn't done all in one day, just because I was getting a little fatigued working on it. But I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I don't know how well you've been able to follow, but I did use a couple different brushes, and I didn't use a ton of different layers, and I think that's something that has stopped me in the past. Is I feel like I have all of these colors, I have all of these tools, I can make as many layers as possible. Why not use all of those abilities while doing digital artwork? But I think that ends up just making me feel exhausted and pretty overwhelmed. So I limited myself to using, I believe it was India ink brush that I'm using right here that has sort of a rough texture, as well as right here I'm using a watercolor brush to sort of blend out. So I feel like the piece overall has a little bit of inconsistency, because I do have some that's very well blended and some that's more textured, but I honestly didn't care if it meant that I was getting something done. So it was mostly me practicing. And then for some of these parts where I'm filling in color as well as the line work, I used one of the pen tools just to get a fairly consistent solid line, the purple line that I used. I think in the past I have definitely felt very overwhelmed by picking color scheme or limiting the colors that I'm using for digital pieces, and since I've been doing that a little bit more with my traditional work and having a little bit more of a specified color palette, I think it actually made it a little bit easier to slip back into trying digital because I stuck to roughly the same kinds of colors I would typically use in a traditional piece. They're obviously going to look quite a bit different, but I am pretty happy with the colors I used, and as you can see in the upper right corner, I did have some reference. I had quite a few references that I actually ended up not using too much, but it was nice to have a general color palette of real succulents to play off of a little bit and keep to an overall color palette and feeling for this illustration. Well, here toward the end, I actually did kind of zoom in and out quite a bit. So I was looking at the composition and figuring out where I felt certain colors were maybe not quite balanced right, and so I added a little bit more blue, this darker blue up in the upper right and the left to just overall balance and add a bit more contrast to the piece overall. Now that we're getting to the very end of this video and this collaboration, make sure to check out the links down below, check out Sweet Pigment's channel, go show her some love, especially now with the YouTube changes. And I did want to gauge your interest in me doing more digital art on my channel. What did you think? Did you like seeing this? Would you prefer just to have traditional? I can almost guarantee I will probably be at least 85% traditional, if more, pretty much at all times. The main thing is for certain merchandise like t-shirts and other things that I'd really love to design, they just are easier to get printed if they're done digitally, and so I might show you a little bit about that, and that's about it. So I wanted to make sure if you like this video, please leave a like, and if you're interested in my content, please make sure to subscribe. I would love to have you around, and as always, I hope you have a creatively fulfilled day. Bye guys!